All right, so this morning, folks who were here this morning got to hear me talk a lot about Phantom. You were not. You were on the plane. So I talked about some of the revenue numbers and so on. We'll talk about them again. I guess show of hands, how many people have Phantom Wallet installed? Oh, that's actually a good amount. Awesome. All right, so you guys hopefully will agree. I think Phantom is hands down the best wallet in crypto. Largest on-chain user base of all wallets. I think top finance app in Google Play Store right now, or one of the top.
It's been charting last week or so, post-election.
Awesome, and Apple Store in the utilities category.
Yeah, number 4, I think. Oh.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Walk us through the history of Phantom. I mean, I guess I'll give you a little bit of tee up. Is you guys made a really opinionated and I would say deeply unpopular at the time bet on Solana back in 2020, before anybody was using the network. I guess, tell us that origin story. How did it get started and why did you make that big bet early on?
Yeah, awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. Super excited to travel and everything and chat with all the LPs. So thanks for the opportunity.
Sure.
I got my start back in crypto in 2017. This was the sort of ICO white paper wave, for those who are around. And before that, I had just completed sort of a 4+ year tour at Twitter where I sort of cut my teeth on product development, mobile development, and sort of the typical Web 2.0, playbook. And when I first got exposed to a lot of the ideas that were in the white papers and ICOs, it sort of flipped everything on its head in terms of how you might think about how to build an application, how to program incentives and all of that. And so that was my initial introduction to crypto. And I was like, oh, well, there's something really interesting here. I dove in full time to this early DeFi. DeFi was not even coined yet. It was this project called 0x, which is an early decentralized exchange protocol. And that's where I spent another 4 years cutting my teeth on crypto, Web3, DeFi. That's where I met my other 2 co-founders. And that's also where I developed my opinion that Ethereum was not going in the right direction, to get to your original question, which was, I think we're basically the unfortunate, victims, I guess, in a way of the way MetaMask was sort of taking the entire industry hostage in a way where not only from a user experience perspective, but also from a developer experience perspective, the front door of the ecosystem was sort of this leaky bucket. And us as protocol and app developers were suffering from that. And I think a big reason why Ethereum developed the way that it is today, and it's such a messy state today, is because of this massively overly dogmatic approach and like overemphasis on decentralization. And so we spent 4 years there, decided, hey, we want to find an ecosystem that's a lot more pragmatic, actually understands, hey, this is early innings of the technologies. It needs to be iterated on, it needs to be developed. And so that's sort of what led us to make the bet on Solana initially. But I guess to take a step back and talk about why the wallet, I think we realized the wallet was the most powerful place in the whole emerging on-chain ecosystem, in the sense that it owns the relationship with the end user. Like I mentioned, it controls the first-time experience for both users and developers in a lot of ways for the ecosystem. And so we just wanted to do a bit of a do-over, claim our own home turf. And that's kind of how we started on Solana.
Right, and what maybe also just describe, like, what was the state of Solana when you decided to do that?
That was probably late 2020. So that was pretty early on, state of Solana. Most people were using this wallet called Solid, which was like an open source reference implementation of a wallet. It was very hobbyist and yes, extremely contrarian. There's nothing that much going on there. But there was a couple of very early signals that I saw that were very interesting. So one, for better for worse, very tight partnership with FTX, understanding that actually centralized exchange on-ramp is one of the most important pieces to sort of seeding an ecosystem, with being that liquidity is sort of the lifeblood of activity on the ecosystems. Following from that, we also noticed that USDC was also at that point was taking a very strong initiative on Solana and had made Solana actually the second largest deployment of USDC, I think early 2021. And then, yeah, like I said, just meeting Raj and Anatoly and just airing out some of our grievances around the Ethereum ecosystem not being practical enough, and just really sort of vibing with them, quote unquote. And I think, yeah, all of those signals early on led us to believe that Solana had a bright future. So
Cool. Well, that was, I think, no doubt the right bet. And today you guys are the dominant wallet in the ecosystem. But that's not all, the whole story. You are a multi-chain wallet. You support you support Ethereum, you support Base. I guess maybe talk a little bit about like going multi-chain and what you think the role of the wallet is in a multi-chain world.
Yeah, so another observation we made from 2017, 2021 was that it was pretty clear that the world was moving into a more multi-chain format. And whereas in 2017, 2018, it was pretty much, the consensus was that you'd be laughed at if you were to suggest that a user or developer would build on something that was not Ethereum. But what really changed my perspective on it was actually in 2020 was the rise of Binance Smart Chain, where it showed that, hey, everyone intuited that there's demand for faster and cheaper blockchains, which seems obvious. That really put it into practice. It showed, hey, if you take a faster and cheaper technology and couple it with the distribution engine of a big player like Binance, you can actually completely shift the landscape. And now all of a sudden, you have Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum going on, and the EVM was fragmented. And so we saw that early on, and I was like, okay, the future is definitely going to be heading in this more multi-chain direction. The incentives are just kind of set up for it to do so. And so we're going to create a multi-chain MetaMask competitor. What we're going to do is, instead of competing with MetaMask directly on Ethereum, competition is for losers, quote unquote. We generate our own home turf, use that as a way of building momentum to then attack MetaMask from the side, sort of on a parallel ecosystem. What we didn't bet on was that Solana would actually start surpassing Ethereum, which it basically has this year. So that's sort of why we decided that we're going to start on Solana, but we're also going to evolve the wallet into a multi-chain over time, which we actually performed that evolution in 2023. And yeah, I think wallets, basically the same exact way that most people perceive centralized exchanges as just a general tool to get into the crypto ecosystem. I think if someone were to propose like an ETH-only centralized exchange, that would make no sense at all. And so, yeah, I believe wallets are going to evolve in a similar way, where wallets will just be multi-chain by default. It's just going to have its own brand, like Coinbase, Phantom, et cetera. And that's just the way that you enter the ecosystem and interact with it, no matter what. And you don't really think about what chain you're using underneath, just the type of content that you want to be consuming.
Right. I think that last point is really important today, because the crypto ecosystem is still relatively small, and I would say also relatively tribal, because people have skin in the game. There's a lot of talk about what chain the apps are on, what chain you're using. My own view is, like, a couple years from now, most users will have no idea what chain they're interacting with, and it's the job of the wallet to abstract that from end users.
Totally. I mean that's already the reality of centralized exchanges. Centralized exchange is a multi-chain experience. You don't really think about, you want some coin. You're not really thinking about what the underlying infrastructure is. It's all abstracted. The wallet, I think it takes a little bit more to abstract over some of those complexities, implemented as a non-custodial wallet specifically, but there's actually no reason why it shouldn't be that way, and that's the direction that we're moving.
Yeah. So, like World, like we just heard from Alex, I think Phantom is also one of the sort of leading forces in onboarding new users on chain. So, earlier in the day, I made the case that over the last few years in particular, there's been two use cases dominating crypto, and they are speculation and stablecoins. And that basically, not these use cases have been around. They've been around for speculation from the inception of crypto and stablecoins, really from the inception of Ethereum, where you could issue stablecoins easily. And so Phantom is very much in the flow of both of those use cases. So I'd love to unpack each and talk a little bit about what you're seeing on both sides and what you're seeing today, what you're excited about on both speculation and stablecoins.
I guess which one to start with? I guess, I can start with speculation. I think in general, what's the right way to put this? I think speculation is it's human nature to assign value to something that is scarce. And the point of crypto is to enforce digital scarcity. And so I think speculation is always going to be part of the crypto ecosystem. It just changes faces and changes forms over time. And so, 3 years ago it was NFTs, now it's meme coins. Before that it was ICOs and something else. And so, my belief is that crypto is basically in part an ever-changing, morphing trading / new age casino for sort of internet natives and next generation. And, we lean into that with supporting meme coins and all of that. But one of the big benefits of that is that it's essentially bringing in all of this money, all of this attention to pave the roads and infrastructure for broader use cases, broader consumer finance applications like stablecoins, and specifically payments and P2P payments, payment to merchants, and all of that. And so anyway, so that's the general spiel, I guess, on speculation. And I do believe that it's going to continue to change shape and change form. But what's really interesting is that, as users are getting exposed to this sort of speculative game, they get more and more exposed to stablecoins. And now on Phantom's platform, there's users hold over $1 billion of stablecoins. And that's really setting things up really well for now. Stripe is pushing their pay with crypto product. Earlier this year, they had a couple demos with Phantom on stage at Stripe at their conference. And I'm really excited to push some of those things through while we have sort of like the main stage and limelight. Because I think the missing piece for payments actually really has been the merchant acceptance part. And really excited for Stripe to work with Stripe to make some moves there.
So tell us a little bit more about how the Stripe, what would the integration with Stripe look like in practice for the end user?
So basically it just shows up as an alternate payment method for, Stripe introduced this new product called new feature called Pay with Crypto, where if you're a merchant, I think it's opt-in for now, but it may be standard later as when they fully roll it out. But you can sell a product and you can accept payment in many different ways. There's credit card, ACH, and then crypto is another payment method. And for the end user, they could click that payment method and then actually just pay directly with their Phantom wallet or any other wallet that has stablecoins in it. And what Stripe does, and this makes sense with their recent bridge acquisition, is then take those coins and automatically land them as like physical US dollars into the merchant's bank account. So because the biggest problem is they don't really know how to deal with crypto or manage it or self-custody it. And so in a world where a merchant actually accepts crypto directly, they can sort of skip all of the normal payment rails fees. In this case, Stripe is sort of like completing this last leg for them. And so it's still charged for it, but it's not the full 3%. It's like 1% or 1.5 or something like that.
Much thinner margin. And I think critically, the number of people who can access stablecoins is basically anyone with an internet connection and a wallet. Right. And whereas the number of people who can hold credit cards is limited to, people who can comply with local or, be in markets where credit cards are accessible. And that is not every market. Right.
Totally. Yeah. And I think Stripe, I think they had this tweet couple months ago where they said they ran a pilot program for Pay with Crypto, and they were so blown away by it. 70 users from 70 different countries actually participated, and then 2 weeks later, the bridge acquisition happened. And so, it was a pretty good test for them.
Awesome. So, so Phantom has evolved. I would say, from early days, it was a very simple kind of, wallet, bare bones, make transactions. To today, something, I would say it's a very feature-rich application. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the features that have been most impactful, both in terms of user growth and also revenue growth for you guys?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So one set of features that I would say has made the biggest difference is discovery and exploration tools. Right now, like you said, wallets are viewed as this one-dimensional tool where you have a specific thing that you're trying to get done, and you take your wallet out and you complete it. But then after that, you don't really know what the next thing to do is, or what to explore, what's even safe to do even. And so we've seen a lot of gains in retention and downstream effects like revenue, growth, et cetera, from adding these exploration and discovery and exploration tools. There's actually also been the secondary effect where, Solana itself also gets strengthened by these discovery and exploration tools. There's not really, Ethereum doesn't really have the same thing on MetaMask, right? The experience is a lot more fragmented. With Phantom, you come in with some intent, and then it's very clear what the next step to do is. And so that's been a huge thing for us. And then, secondly, user safety features is actually something that has been a huge, pretty, I think, understated effect that we've had on the market. Prior to us, MetaMask, the typical MetaMask experience, basically in 2021, you would have all of these cases of phishing and theft happening via MetaMask, because when you confirm a transaction, you literally have no idea what it's saying or what it's doing. You just hit yes because you're trying to get like the monkey as fast as possible or whatever, like faster than someone else. That actually, in my mind, did a lot of irreparable damage to the whole like ecosystem and industry, because most people, if they experience phishing or theft while using crypto, they're never coming back again. Right? And you only really hear about the biggest cases like Kevin Rose or whoever, but like vast majority of cases are just people who are like, well, that was embarrassing, and just never talk about it again. And so we did a lot of work. Actually, today we just announced we did an acquisition, a company called Blowfish, which specializes in anti-phishing, anti-scamming technologies to build directly into the wallet. Those guys were actually all X0X guys as well. And so we helped incubate their company and make sure we had a lot of those safety features built directly into the wallet. I say that was another thing that it's pretty understated in general, but it's probably one of the most important things that we pushed on.
Cool. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the revenue mix today, and then what you're most excited about in terms of growth. We can talk about growth again, both in terms of revenue and in terms of where do the next X million users come from?
Yeah, well, so in general, the main revenue driver for wallets in general is in-wallet swap feature. So that's the current main revenue driver for Phantom, is that we have basically a premium swapper that's positioned against the vast world of different swappers that you can use out there. And it helps users complete a core job to be done that they want to do. But what's really interesting about this setup is that we've accumulated basically all of these eyeballs in distribution, and then we have the ability to launch premium products directly into the and get instant distribution across the entire, not only Solana ecosystem, but now has honestly become majority of the on-chain ecosystem. And so just from a market structure perspective, that allows us to basically produce a lot of different types of products and attempts, shots on goal, to be able to see what works, what doesn't, very easily. And so I guess I would be lying if I said I knew exactly what the next 9-figure business model is going to be, but we actually have this interesting setup where we can experiment our way there very quickly because we have instant distribution. And so, but other things that I suspect will be quite interesting. So basically any type of verb that people do with their crypto is an opportunity for us. So staking, specifically liquid staking, is interesting. Paying with crypto, the more that becomes a thing, you can imagine a marketplace directly in Phantom where these are all products that you can pay directly with crypto. The hardest part actually is focusing on what to do, because there's so many different directions we could take it.
One that we've talked about that I'm particularly interested in is in the life cycle of a transaction on chain. There's this thing called MEV. We're investors in Flashbots, which is kind of in the flow of this. What MEV stands for miner extractable value, and it is basically value that gets paid to the validators of the network to prioritize transactions.
Yeah.
And on Solana, there's a lot of MEV because there's a lot of people trying to catch the next meme coin before everybody else, and paying for priority to buy their way to be at the front of the queue.
That's right.
And so Phantom, I think, sits in a really privileged position in the life cycle of the transaction because you originate the vast majority of transactions on the network, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's one opportunity where I think it's less about a user facing feature and more just sort of a technical optimization of getting into the flow of that value that's just right there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I wasn't going to get into it because I wasn't sure how technical to get, but in general, if most people are probably familiar with Robinhood's payment for order flow business model. The exact same thing exists in crypto, except we're the originator of the order flow. And also the order flow is completely generic. Like, it's not just trades, it's any type of economic activity is basically originated at the wallet and then can be potentially put through some MEV auction, order flow auction system or whatever to actually produce another business model. So that's right.
And one thing I would add, just because payment for order flow has different connotations, is I think today it's the case, and this has been the case in Ethereum. It's also the case in Solana, that the formalization of markets, equivalent markets for payment for order flow, has been done by the most sophisticated actors without much thought given to the end user. And your customer really is the end user. So I think one of the exciting opportunities is as the originator of the flow, you can participate in a payment for order flow model that actually ends up benefiting the users more than is the case today, where more sophisticated adversarial actors are kind of taking up all the value in the supply chain.
Totally. Yeah. MEV, I think, it gets a bad rep because it literally has extract in the name.
Right.
But there is a world where you can actually harness these techniques to ensure better execution for the end user, both from a price perspective, but also from a safety perspective as well.
Right.
Which is related to this Bulletfish acquisition that we did.
Yeah. So I think, I guess summing all that up, there's a bunch of new product features you can launch to help users get their jobs done on chain with the massive distribution. There's also this, just maturation going on of the transaction lifecycle in crypto, where you guys are very well positioned to be more in the flow of value throughout the entire transaction lifecycle, which is really exciting. So I think in my own view is, Phantom's revenue right now is going to multiply very, very quickly as a result of those two things.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but honestly, I feel like it could potentially 2 or 3x next year with us not even doing anything. I mean, we're just standing in the exact right place at the right time currently, where like everything's moving. Crypto is eating everything, quote unquote. Stripe made their largest acquisition ever into stablecoins and all this stuff. The definition of crypto is also changing, where people crypto used to be, I go to Coinbase.com to get exposure to Ethereum or Bitcoin, but now crypto is more about exploring this on-chain ecosystem. And so we're the beneficiaries of that trend. And then more and more activity on-chain is happening on Solana. And so we have like kind of this like three-way tailwind going on. But of course, on top of that, we're planning on locking it in and trying to knock it out of the park next year. But yeah, I mean, I think next year could get pretty crazy.
So, all right. So those are all the positive things. What are the things that keep you up at night most? Biggest challenges you think Phantom might face in the next little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, yeah, I think I'll bring it back to the user safety, and phishing and scamming is still quite a difficult problem, and it's actually a never-ending problem because it's a cat and mouse game where attackers get more and more sophisticated, and we have to get more and more sophisticated in order to counter them. Again, that's why we bought this company, to be able to, that was providing these services for multiple different wallets, take them, basically corner them as a proprietary resource, and then also infuse all of their like anti-scamming, anti-phishing models with all of our proprietary signals in service of just making sure that no one's like getting phished. I think that's my biggest fear, is that we actually are at the mouth of all of these users coming in, and like it was a little bit too early, and they're all getting scammed still, and they're all falling out and not getting retained. So that's, I think, yeah, something that keeps me up. So,
what about maybe just coming back to speculation? And you mentioned earlier, there's been different games, right? There was NFTs, there was ICOs, there's now memecoins is driving a lot of the activity on Solana. And I'm with you that, there will always be a new game on the field, and chances are you'll play that game with Phantom, so you're well positioned. But like, I guess, what's your prospectus on the longevity of meme coins and how material that is for Phantom's business?
Well, obviously it's going to be very material. I'd say I do think, like I said earlier, the speculation game changes quite. Part of the nature of it is that it changes. But I do think that meme coins are probably a bit closer to the end state for a couple different reasons. One, it's a lot more naked of what it is. Whereas in NFTs, it was like people who were kind of pseudo speculating. There was a lot of people saying we're all going to make it, but that, of course, that wasn't true. In meme coins, it's a lot more of a naked speculation and gambling game. And so in that sense, I do believe it's a bit closer to what maybe the final state is. And it's also 10x better than NFTs in a number of different ways. It's more dynamic, more liquidity, all these sorts of things. And so I do think it will have more legs than previous
I agree.
versions.
I've said this to some of the folks in the audience, like, individually, meme coins are extremely volatile. They're about as volatile as like a viral tweet is, and because they are literally just monetizing attention. So as long-lived as a tweet is on Twitter, that's generally how long-lived the average meme coin is. But as an asset class, I think the asset class has got staying power and is probably going to be many orders of magnitude bigger than it currently is today. So I think meme coins are not going anywhere in the short term, but individually are extremely volatile. So I'm with you. All right, thank you so much, Brandon, for flying in to be with us. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse.
Cool.